Hey everybody, Austin with Make Pop Music here, and today we're going to bring you a really quick tutorial. We're going to go over 3 things that you can do in your mixes to kind of help your drums pop out. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to cover parallel compression and processing on a kick to kind of give it some punchiness and some body in the mix. Then we're going to go over how to use rooms and reverbs on your snare, clap, snap, whatever that may be in your mix to kind of give that some depth and some space. And then we're also going to cover how to process some extra percussion, like if you've got like hand percussion or like rhythmic bells or anything like that, kind of how to process that to give it a little bit of vibe and some spice in the mix. So without further ado, we'll jump into that. But first, let me just say I really appreciate you all watching our videos and helping support Make Pop Music. We love bringing you content, so if you want to help us out, please like, comment, and subscribe on this video. It really helps us more than you know, so we would really appreciate that. And also, if you're not a part of our Make Pop Music community on Facebook, definitely click the link in the description below and come join us, because we have daily conversations, we have daily content that's curated by us, lots of free goodies, so we'd love to see you in there, we'd love to connect. Definitely come hang out with us. But without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into Codemilo's track called Vibes, and I'll kind of show you guys a couple things I did on the drums to kind of spice them up a little bit.
I could do this every day, if I had my way, you'd be here to stay, here to stay. If I could, then I would, we'd be good together.
Cool, so we just heard a little snippet of what we're going to be going over today. If you saw the percussion video I did last week, you'll notice that this one is a lot more simple. Codemilo actually produced this himself and then sent me over the stems to mix. So all we have really to work with is this kick, this snare, and this little like bell percussion thing, which is cool. It works in this production, and I mean the song is called Vibes. It has the vibes, so I didn't really want to add anything else. I just kind of wanted to make the most out of what I had here. So let's go ahead and take another close listen to what the kick, the snare, and that little bell are doing.
I could do this every day, if I had my way, you'd be here to stay, if I could.
Cool, so let's go ahead and turn off all of the processing that we did on this and just kind of hear how it was when I got it.
I could do this every day, if I had my way, you'd be here to stay, if I could, then I would.
Cool, so as you hear, it's not bad, it's just not really doing anything super special. And let's listen to this kick. Let's start here. So we've got, so it's a really standard like 808 909 electronic kick that you can get anywhere. I noticed that it was having a hard time kind of poking through the mix, so let's take a listen.
I could do this every day, if I had my way, you'd be.
So what I did is, let's go ahead and turn on the parallel. Let me go down here and let's see what we were doing. A parallel processing chain means basically I'm setting up a send or an aux or an effects, whatever your DAW is going to call it. I'm setting one of those up and I'm sending the kick to that. And basically what I'm going to do on that is, for this we're going over parallel compression, so I compressed the absolute shit out of it with an 1176 and then added a little bit of attack with this envelope shaper. So the reason I'm doing this with a main drum is because these are both really harsh effects, and I really just wanted them to kind of like be mixed into the track. I didn't necessarily want this drum like slamming super hard. So let's take a look at what I did for the kick. So I'll set the input, set the output. That's, going to depend all on your mix. I've got the attack set to like 1.5 to 2. It's actually exactly at 2, so perfect. I set the release all the way at 7, and then the key to this was I had the all buttons in, which absolutely just like mashed the kick. So it's not a 4 ratio, it's not an 8 ratio, it's not a 12, it's not a 20, all. And like CLA is really known for his drum mixes. You'll see him hitting this all button on pretty much every mix he has in a parallel process. It just absolutely squeezes the piss out of him, and it sounds great when you mix it in with a actual track. It sounds really bad in my opinion when you do it just on the track by itself. So that's why we have it set up in a parallel. And then Cubase has a cool multi-band envelope shaper, so we kind of gave it a little bit of attack on that low thud and a little bit of attack in this like clicky high mids. So that's, you're gonna hear a little click come in and you're gonna hear a nice little low end attack. So let's go ahead and take a listen now with that drum parallel mixed in. And here, I'll actually start with none and then I'll start mixing it in.
I could do this every day, if I had my way, you'd be here to stay, if I could, then I would, we'd be good together.
So as you hear, we ended up going way too hard on that. Let's take a listen. And that's exactly why I didn't do these effects on the channels themselves. I didn't want all of that. I think we scaled it back to like down here. So it's barely mixed in, but it makes a huge difference in the mix. So as you see, we're just kind of slamming it right here, giving it a good little compression, and then a nice little boost with that. So that's really all we did on that kick. So you can use that on a kick, you can use it on a snare, use it on anything. Basically, you just want to set up that send and then just kind of process that by itself and then just blend that into that dry mix. So let's go ahead and take a listen to the snare. So that's what I got. That's what I got from Codemilo. And then let's go ahead and take a look at what I did. So I crushed it a little bit, kind of compressed it, and did we end up saturating it? Yeah, saturated it just a little bit. So that gave it a lot of body. And then I threw on Verbsuite. That's actually my favorite reverb at the moment. But any reverb would do. If it doesn't have a dry and wet knob, just use it as a send if you want. We have a video on that. Just go check out our it's like our stock reverb and delay video, so check that out. We kind of talk about setting up reverb sends, but since this has a dry and the wet and I didn't really want to do anything crazy with it, I just set it up on here. So let's take a listen. So as you can hear, we're adding a lot of width and we're adding a little bit of tail, so let's check that in the mix. Here's without.
Do this every day, every day. If I had my way, you'd be here to stay, here to stay. If I could, then I would. We'd be good together.
So you're getting a lot of that space and that tail from that reverb, but you're also going to get a little bit of width, and it kind of just helps that drum kind of poke out of the middle, and it gives it a little bit of body in the mix. So little changes like this, like the kick was a little change, the snare was a little change. Those little changes all add up in the end and make a huge difference on your mix. So definitely try adding like a reverb or a room to your snares and snaps and claps. People used to tell me don't add, reverb to a hip hop snare. It's not necessary. And you know what? Sometimes it's not. Sometimes I want a dry snare. Sometimes a really dry, pokey snare works. For this though, like, the whole song's about vibes. I wanted the drums to be really, really vibey, so that reverb was crucial for me. And then let's take a listen to this little bell right here. That's what I was sent. And then let's take a listen after. So as you see, again, I'm using Camel Crush, adding a little bit of compression. Actually, I'm adding a lot of bit of compression, and I've got it on fat, so I'm squeezing it. We've got some distortion in here. Let's take a listen. So I kind of like that distorted harmonic it's adding to it. And then I noticed, let's go ahead and listen to the song and I'll show you why I did this little delay.
Do this every day, every day. If I had my way, you'd be here to stay, here to stay. If I could.
So as you can see, it's really just layered under that snare. It almost becomes inaudible unless you turn it way up. And then it's got way too much kind of like a high end, and it's too reminiscent of the note to really blend in with that snare. So I figured, why not add this delay so we can get a cool little tail on it. Let's take a listen soloed. So I've got a stereo delay at 1/4 to the left, 1/4 dotted to the right. I love doing like a 1/4 and a 1/4 dotted, or a 1/8 and a 1/8 dotted. It adds this really cool like gallopy between the left and right. Filtered that out a little bit. Let's take a listen in the mix, because now you'll actually hear that snare popping through on that delay.
Do this every day, every day. If I had my way, you'd be here to stay, here to stay. If I could, then I would. We'd be good together.
So you can kind of hear it trailing off right there with that delay set on. And then again, I threw on reverb, kind of using my own trick that I just taught you from the last time. This one's a lot longer reverb, and I've mixed it pretty wet. So let's take a listen to it. And that reverb mixed with that delay is really what this little bell percussion hit needed to poke out. Otherwise, it was getting really, really lost in there. So let's take a listen now with everything.
I could do this every day, every day. If I had my way, you'd be here to stay, here to stay. If I could, then I would. We'd be good together.
And then just for comparison, one more time, let's listen without any of the processing.
Do this every day, every day. If I had my way, you be here to stay, here to stay.
As you can tell, it's still, you know, a cool drum sound. There's still good samples. It's still a good mix. But I really wanted them to have some character. I really wanted them to have some body and kind of stand out in that mix. So that's why we ended up doing that parallel compression and processing. We ended up adding some reverb to the snare and to that bell. And then we ended up adding that delay for that bell to really kind of poke out. So try to use these little short tips in your new mixes. And then, you know, you can swap these around. You can parallel process your kick, your snare, your toms, and your percussion. You can use a reverb on your snare, your toms, any kind of percussion. Be careful though with reverb. It sounds really, really muddy if you start getting a lot of reverb in the low end. So definitely use like an EQ on a send, and then you can just kind of EQ out all of that low end, so that reverb is just a nice mids and the highs. But anyway, take some of these tips and then, you know, use them in your mixes. Tell us what you think. Tell us if you have any tips of your own. Come to the Make Pop Music group and kind of share your mixes, and we can all give you some feedback. Tell us how you're liking the tips that we're given. But that's going to do it for today, so I hope you guys enjoyed these quick little tips. But I will see you guys next week. Much love. Peace out.